Free online mental health support. Turning Point CT.
Hey everyone, we are young adults working on the Turning Point CT project. Here's our reaction to what does America's coronavirus response look like abroad? So that was pretty intense. What do you guys think about that?
That graph was insane where they just showed like the unemployment just like it just kept going down the thing. They'd like keep scrolling.
Yeah, it's really jarring to see how deep down it went. Like, seeing it on a graph, like, shows it in a perspective I didn't look at. Like, it's a lot, but, like, showing how far it went down was crazy.
Yeah, it's like an intangible number that we can't really like even fathom.
Yeah.
Between the amount of tests taken and the amount of deaths is what really shocked me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, it's just so frustrating that like when they show like on the news and stuff about like beaches and it's all like young people, like I don't know, that's so sad, and I just like don't want to be associated with that as a young person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think the media definitely messed up in the beginning by saying that, oh, only old people are affected. So it screwed up a lot of people's mentality about like the virus and like the seriousness of it. Because honestly, a lot of people see their grandparents as disposable. It's a cultural thing, I think, in the US. I don't like see it a lot in other places. So I just found that really interesting.
Yeah. It's not even like from my own personal experience, like my grandparents live in England, so my exposure to them is very limited, but even to my parents, like I can't, like I live with them, I don't want to be bringing it back into our home and exposing them to it where they're at risk. Like I just don't see like the connection between like the risk factor and the way people are handling it.
It's really hard to see, because like the one guy was saying, like, we've all seen what the president does and the decisions he makes, but like just lying at press conference, like you can see that like what he's saying is not true. And a lot of people are like, oh, whatever, like America is the best country in the world, but like right now we're leading the world in deaths, and that is it. So like everything else, a lot of other countries, like people were saying, even other countries who historically like have been and even are like their economies are or like weren't doing well, like they have handled it better than the US has. Yeah,
it's been like super difficult to distinguish between like what's real and what's fake, and yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
I think a challenge also within America, and you can say this, there's a lot you could talk about in terms of this, but as much as it can be a good thing to have the power in the state governments, I think that we've lacked a lot of, big national government leadership, or, something that essentially tells everybody in the United States that they're required to be on lockdown. So for instance, when the Northeast went into lockdown, once New York spiked, that it was that way for us, but very much so, whether it's in the South or, in the Midwest, other states were not. And so I think that's allowed for it to sort of regionally pop up. And even now, if we had all maybe went into lockdown and everybody was required to, there's a chance that, maybe you would see less flare-ups because everybody was locked down, as opposed to, certain parts of the country not having mask mandates, or certain parts of the country not being required to lock down. So I think that's another struggle where obviously the United States is a lot bigger than a lot of these countries that we're looking at, and that definitely plays a factor just when you're looking at different ideologies that might be across those states. Mm-hmm. And without the national government sort of coming in and putting its foot down and saying, you need to wear a mask, like, we're all quarantining right now. It was left up to the states, which to an extent can be fine, but does allow for different policies to be in place in different regions, specifically across one big cohesive country. So, that's when we're seeing issues as well, because if one region decides that they're going to strongly adhere to these guidelines or, is putting in that effort during a couple of months, then, like we're seeing, I think now in England, things should technically be lower. But, if you have other regions who, aren't choosing to wear masks, aren't choosing to quarantine, aren't taking it seriously, then the flare-ups and the existence of the virus in those other separate regions of the country are going to inherently, unfortunately, affect everybody, because you can't just not let them into various states.
Mhm.
So I think that is also when you're seeing a little bit of a difference, is it's, down to somewhat national leadership not deciding to implement stricter policies sooner. And, that's kind of like what Vanessa was saying about even just the president on the media and what he's choosing to say about it, which is unfortunate because it keeps us very much in this position where we are experiencing a lot of deaths and where the situation looks like we're a third world country, which is extremely unfortunate for, what America should have been able to do in this situation that we clearly have not done as of now.
Definitely. Yeah, I completely agree. The one thing that being in America has kind of taught me throughout this experience is like the difference between like an individualistic culture and a collectivist culture. Like people just struggle so much here to I feel like they're trying to like maintain their sense of like freedom or autonomy or whatever, but it's like literally restricting them in the long run, because we're going to be shut down and locked up, or not locked up, but like locked down for so much longer now, like all of us, because the threat of it is still so present and so tangible. Like we're seeing all the spikes in the places that didn't have these like mandates and where people aren't wearing masks. Like it's the difference between like science and like opinion, which has been kind of like not like, it's been a threat, but it hasn't been like such a threat to like our lives and safety up until this point. Like we have these people constructing these narratives of like what is real and what's not, and it's literally killing people now, and it's so upsetting to see.
I think one of like the major differences also is, at least I haven't seen in very many other countries, but America has just made it so political. And like if we just like listen to like scientists and stuff who actually have been like researching their entire lives, like it would be so different. But like you said, everybody just like wants to maintain their like sense of freedom and like be an individual, and it's just very frustrating to watch.
Yeah, I also feel like people just always want to be like the smartest one. So you have people that like failed like intro biology coming up with these like conspiracy theories because
like it's fake, the coronavirus is fake, it's not real.
Yeah, it like gives them a sense of like, I don't know, like I don't know, they want to feel special. And like you like see on social media everyone just like going out to like the beach with no mask, like hanging out with like large groups of friends at like their lake house or something, and you're like, did I make this up? Like did I just stay in quarantine for no reason? Because I guess everyone's like hanging out now.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. In my town, there was a lot of people go to Nantucket over the summer, and there was one, it was tracked back to one party among like teens / young adults age, where 16 people got it, and then brought it back to like our area and started spreading it around, because they were still practicing that, like they weren't practicing social distancing, they were hanging out in large groups of people and just taking it so lightly. And it's like, for being in a house of like somebody that's immunocompromised in the age range where people are most at risk of dying from it, like not even just getting it, but like dying from it, it's so frustrating because we can't live our lives normally, but they are living their lives normally because they don't have any like repercussions to their decisions and actions.
And it's very interesting because personally, the state of Connecticut, once we've seen on social media that our cases were decreasing, everybody starts going out, and then now the cases are increasing. People still have no jobs and are either like laid off for the moment or whatever. So we don't know what we're looking forward to in the next couple months, weeks, days because of our cases increasing now.
Yeah. That must be really frustrating for like everybody on this call, just to feel like your life is on hold in that way. Like for whoever has been like practicing these safety measures, like it hasn't really come to anything now because we're not in control of like everybody else's actions, and that's so frustrating.
Yeah, like I haven't been able to see my grandpa, but people are like at the amusement park. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, it's really hard, and especially because like now things are like opening up again. Like it's like mandatory that they have to open up. It's like causing new problems because people are under the impression that like kids can't really get coronavirus, but we don't know that because the minute that coronavirus got here, like everyone was out of school. So obviously kids aren't getting coronavirus because they're not like outside. But I think things are really going to change, and it's still very hard because we don't know like the long-term effects of like getting coronavirus, and like, okay, you're like better now, but like how are your lungs gonna be like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Yeah, everything's up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Also to kind of get back to what Alex said about it being like really political. I remember that my dad was saying that he had a client, and like my dad was wearing a mask and stuff, and he was asking like the client if he was asking something about like why the client wasn't wearing a mask, and the guy just said, "Oh, I'm a Republican. I don't do that." So it's just like insane how polarized that's getting.
Like that makes me so mad because it means it's like because of my political affiliations, I don't care about other people's lives. I don't care about the safety of the other people in this room. Like, wow, that's
A
crazy.
lot of it is like, it's so, it makes me so mad because like science should not be partisan, and listening to scientists should not be partisan because, and like a lot of people are saying like, oh my gosh, coronavirus, it's all a hoax by the Democrats. Like, what? No, it's not. It like people are dying. It's a real thing. It makes me mad.
Global pandemic. It's not even like just America. It's like it's proven everywhere, like where that system doesn't exist. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, it's just like it's infuriating to see it like be weaponized into like a political thing. Like people are using it to their advantage. And it's just like wearing a mask should not be a political issue because it's something you're doing out of kindness, basically, because like it's protecting you and the other person, more importantly, from getting coronavirus. So it's just infuriating to see that. And the other day I saw an article, it might not be true. It was from Vanity Fair, and there was someone from Trump's team that was like in charge of organizing like the coronavirus like response team, and they said that they had stuff ready earlier, but the fact that blue states were getting hit, they didn't want to release it because they wanted to show that the blue states couldn't handle it, and they were going to like use that to their advantage for the election. And like just thinking about it, like it hopefully isn't true, but like honestly I wouldn't be surprised anymore, and just thinking about it is like infuriating, really.
Yeah. It's super infuriating to feel like your life has been like played with as like a political chess piece. Like so many people lost their lives that didn't need to. They lost their lives early because of this virus that wasn't contained by the people that are supposed to protect us. And that's been like so glaring, like just to see the gaps in like who's protecting us, and like the reaction that the quick mobilization of the government to like quell protesters versus protecting and providing appropriate PPE for healthcare workers. Like it's like the difference is so blatant and in our face now, and for people to not see it or to just be ignoring it still, it's just really gets me.
Like, you have the money to put every police department in major cities in full riot gear, but you don't have the money to get masks to nurses in hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just hits a little different.
I mean, it kind of just feels like we're on like a prank show because like some of the things you hear, you're like, that can't be right. Like even like the president at the Tulsa rally was like, we slow down the testing so we'd have less cases, so it's okay. And like you like listen to that and you're like, you cannot be serious. Like even if you like tried to do that, don't like admitting it like as if it's a good thing. It's just it hurts. Like I'm like, how ignorant can you be? Like it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. When meanwhile the president has been tested every single day and his child is going into online school, and it's just, you know, not to make it too political, but these people are just serving their own interests and without any like respect or consideration for the people that they're hurting in the meantime. I'm just speechless. Yeah. Thank you everybody for being part of this like discussion and reaction, and I think it's great to hear from people our age and have our voices be heard on stuff like this, because generally we don't really have a platform, and you know, the people that we're hearing from, I think we've heard enough before. I think it's time for us to speak up and let our voices be heard.